your dice, let's roll tonight. All the fun in the spotlight. Inside sharp and laughter bright. We're tuning in for delight.
Okay, so welcome everyone to Roll for Insight. This is a series where we sit down with experienced dungeon masters to get a behind-the-scene look. Maybe some of their processes, their tips, memorable moments from their games, and whether you're a veteran DM, just starting out, maybe you got junior GM role, or just kind of curious about art of storytelling, or even if you're just not a DM and you're like a player. We'll hope you'll find some valuable insights today. We're going to be asking a little bit of mix of prepared and spontaneous questions. So some of these might be just random rolled, hence roll for insight. But we're going to be diving into topics like world building, running encounters, how to handle players. And towards the end, we are going to have, if there's any unrelated questions from you, the audience, there's going to be time at the end. I'm going to read your questions out and feel free to think about any questions you'd like to ask our guests.
Thanks for having me. I'm Corgi. My server nickname is currently set to Jin's Mind Voice number 2, but that is a joke. Long story. I have been playing D&D since January 2018. I have been DMing since August 2018. And how long is that? I, I 5, 6 years or going 7 because it's 2025. I totally forgot that it's 2025. Thanks for having me.
No, of course. And how long have you been in DM? Like, what initially drew you to the DM seat?
Okay. Uh, DMing, the moment I saw some folks running the game, I had this feeling that I think I'm gonna do something like that someday. It's just that I want to know how the game works first. That's why I started out as a player, and with a little bit of pushing and prodding from the people who taught me how the game works, I figured I'm gonna DM eventually. It's just a matter of when. And in the spur of the moment, I decided to run a random encounter scenario with some coworkers during our lunch break, and that was technically my first DMing experience. Nothing was pre-planned, nothing, everything was just impromptu and spontaneous. And one thing led to another, and now I'm still DMing.
And how did that one shot go?
That's a really good question. It was a random scenario, like a little quest where the local town's mayor, or the kid of the local town's mayor, lost their pet, and the party needs to look for the pet. And then it turns out the pet was just very, very mischievous. Something simple like that. Nothing fancy.
Okay. And what would you say your preferred style as a DM? Like, are you more story focused? Are you rules oriented? Off the cuff of your seat? What's your style?
The thing about my style is I don't exactly know what it is. I usually have to ask the people who play at my table to tell me what that is. However, if if asked what my preferences are when I do run the game, I like balancing them out, and I am one of those DMs who runs the game rules as written. However, I also exercise some flexibility when it comes to making things a little bit more fun and exciting so that it opens the floor for creativity from the players. However, I also have a mad respect for people who, while following the bounds of rules as written, supposedly, are still able to exercise their creativity in such a way that impresses me. I like a balance, as all things should be.
What kind of games or what kind of games do you like to run? One shots, campaigns? Like, what do you like enjoy doing the most?
I'm the Based on the conversations I've been hearing here in the server from the DMs and the other interviews, I think I'm in the minority that prefers to run one-shot based games.
Yeah, that's how
Yeah.
I haven't. I have the interest for campaigns. I just don't have the capacity to do it routinely. So
I don't have the brain space for it. Nah, I can't. I don't have it in me to do that. I do the one shot stuff. I try to make them interconnected so that the player, the players do feel that they are taking part in a long running story. But yes.
so those are our opening questions. I'm checking the chat just to make sure. And so moving on to our session questions. These first couple are going to be about general DMing. How do you play with, or how do you deal with players that might try to kind of derail your your ambiance of the story that you're trying to tell, or maybe trying to just derail your one shot? How would you, if you have, how would you handle them?
Derail as in the tone is serious, but they make it super not serious.
Yeah, or vice versa.
If I do have to deal with that kind of player, I try to first and foremost steer the tone and keep it consistent. If it gets a little disruptive, I have to pause the game session and say outright, "Yo, in case you're not noticing, this moment is rather serious, and you using comedy trying to undercut the tone is getting a little bit disruptive. Don't make yourself like a Marvel movie scriptwriter and trying to put humor where where there shouldn't be."
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. And how would you handle players maybe if like they did a one shot with you and then like a few sessions, like a few weeks later, they're trying to bring in that same character for continuity? Like, how would you handle that if they're trying to bring in players from previous sessions for a one shot?
It depends on what their character did in the previous session. If the character made a funny tactic or something, I'll try to bring it back. If they make a joke, I'll try to bring it back as well and see if they catch it. If they make a little reference, or if they run into an NPC, or rather, if they interact with an NPC in a very specific way that was memorable to the table, I'll bring that NPC back. It could be a shopkeeper, it could be a random bandit. Maybe the bandit that they fought in the previous one shot was convinced to be reformed and seek a better life. And later down the line, if I do run a different one shot and that same character shows up, I'll have that bandit say, "Hey, you, I remember you. Look at me and my new gardening business." Kind of like that.
No, that's pretty clever. And all the other players are like, huh? How do you know this guy? No, I get it. And what would you say your approach is to designing encounters for environments?
Environments. It depends on the level of the characters that I'm dealing with. And of course, the player's level of experience. If I'm dealing with newer players, I'm not going to freak them out by putting in the scary stuff. And also, if the adventure that I'm running does have some environmental things built into them, I will, because I want to be respectful of the material that I'm running. If I'm dealing with higher level groups with more experienced players, of course, I'm going to pick material that has interesting environmental effects, and that's what I bring in. That's what I like. I do like when the environmental effects or the terrain that the characters are fighting in has its own personality as though it were its own NPC. It's why I am particularly fond of lair actions when they're present and they're appropriate, of course. But if I'm dealing with newer players, I'm not gonna scare them with those. Please no. There are too many things moving around, and they're not gonna be able to focus, and they're gonna be too frightened to take more of those risks that they're inclined to take in combat if there are too many scary things threatening them.
Yeah, that makes sense. And you said something about for higher player level. So I have a few follow-up questions.
Mm,
What's when you say higher level players, like what's the highest level, or like what's your, I guess, like the
mm.
highest level that you've DM'd for?
The highest level game that I've DM'd for was an incomplete run of a level 21 shot. That was a peculiar thing that had something to do with my schedule being weird, but I did manage to get it started. The the group was great. The characters were all level 20, and that's the highest level that I've run for. However, I've only done that once, and I try to hype myself up to be able to run that again in the future, but I haven't yet. I haven't found the bravery to do so. So the consistently, air quotes, highest level that I do would be level 16. You know, the tiers of play, right? Tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. Tier 3 is what I consistently would run for the more experienced folks, and that's when the fun stuff comes up, and it's not overly ridiculous yet. The characters can still be somewhat challenged, even though not as much, because tier 3, but it's not as ridiculous as tier 4, where every character is like a god, you know.
No, that's true because I'm in the same situation where I have drafted a level 21 shot, and it's like has Act 1, 2, and 3, and I've got the monster, like the big boss essentially. But I'm still trying to work out the kinks for it to make sure that it makes sense. Because I haven't one shotted for that high a level, but no.
Mm.
And still in the concept of like environments and stuff, what would you say is your favorite environment to run encounters in? Either like social encounters or even like combat.
Mm, an environmental effect that puts a timer, the kind that will get the players to be like, oh shit, let's keep moving. Things like, if I'm dealing with a party of level 10 characters, I provide a little hint in the corner of the map, the hint of something that's going to show up, something really big, something really scary, and something that is not meant for level 10 characters to fight. And the players who pay attention to the map are slowly going to realize that the thing that's on the corner of the map is moving ever so closely towards the group's direction. So much so that they start seeing the artwork of the monster. They'll just see the edge of the token, perhaps. I'm using a virtual tabletop as I'm saying this, right? They're gonna start seeing the image, and they're gonna realize that, wait a minute, that's just a part of the image. The thing is bigger than intended. It's probably half the size of the entire freaking map. And when they start to notice it and point it out to me, I'm like, "Oh, you noticed that? Are you sure you want to be able to see the whole thing, or are you gonna get moving and proceed with this?" And they start kicking things into high gear and making decisions instead of uh bumbling around figuring out what to do. Nah, they gotta make their choices and make it fast. Because sometimes, um, in adventuring, the things that are about to show up don't wait for you to make a move, and you gotta act. And of course, I try to be conscious of the game time, because I don't want us sitting here for 5 hours, wherein 2 of those 5 hours were just um say trying to figure out what to do, and the back changing their minds, hesitating, whatnot. Nah, 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 let's make the choices, discuss quickly enough, and then when it's time, let's see where it goes, and no take backsies.
No, that's the VTT stuff. With something a trick I picked up. Somebody taught me was audio tokens, where if it's a
Mm,
monster, you can set the like the radius of if a player enters it, they start hearing noises, but they can't see it. That's been
mm.
really fun. So give it like sticks cracking or just growling or something. But that's been really fun. But no, that's really great because like with having like a 5 hour session and having 2 hours kind of getting stuck in like, hey, it's like we're still in the intro. A few weeks ago I ran a game like that. I was like, we were like 40 minutes in the first part. I was like, This is supposed to be a 5 minute thing. So
It
no, that's
hurts, right?
yeah. I was like, I didn't even get to. I had to cut a lot of stuff on the back end, but we still got through it. And that was, and it was still a great session because like they were enjoying themselves. So it was just like they had way too much fun, more than I thought they were going to. But, and with this gap, not a gap, but like an unexpected. How do you usually handle players like not knowing, like if you're expecting 5 hours, it took 2 hours, and you're still kind of in an area you were expecting to be gone out of. How would you
Mm,
handle, or how do you handle players now with that when they try to go off script, or like maybe in a positive, or like, hey, this is kind of dragging out longer? How do you handle that?
mm, mm. Well, same basic principle as the thing I answered earlier with regards to characters who try to derail stuff purposefully. I start by gently directing them in character first, just to make sure they understand my intent. And when that's not enough, if that's not enough, I will then speak out of character and say, "Y'all, we are 3 hours in. I have an hour left, and we're not even done halfway through the content that I have for you. If we dilly dally too much, you're gonna miss a big chunk of what you're supposed to be experiencing, and I don't think you want that." Also, as part of my pre-game table rules reading, I do incorporate a little some mentions that y'all, this adventure features a lot of exploration or a lot of social, depends on what I'm running, and I say out loud that if you take too long in figuring out what to do, and if you do too much what's the term, fucking around, you're gonna miss a lot of the content, and I don't want you to miss the content. You might lose your opportunity to see and experience some of the fun stuff, you know. So let's try to experience all the fun stuff. And sometimes it really is unavoidable, and if it does become unavoidable, it's it's not the end of the world, because things do be like that sometimes, you know.
Oh yeah, for sure. Because I've always been like, even when it happened just a few weeks ago, and I think I'm 2 for 2, and I'm like still struggling. I'm like, do I just say, hey, like, y'all been here for too long? But no,
Yeah.
that's great advice. So, and this is gonna be the last question of this section. What, or how do you design cities and towns to your sessions, to your one shots? How much in depth do you go to?
mm. I am, how do I say this, hesitant. I'm called a hesitant world builder, because I know myself well enough that if I start, I'm not going to stop. I'm not the kind of person who will stop. I'm not. I. It's something that my brain does without meaning to, where I latch onto something and I end up in a rabbit hole of Wikipedia articles and trying to figure out how everything pieces together. Where I try to form a big puzzle, and then I never get anything done because it never truly ends. World building never ends. No, no, no. You just keep going and going and going. Next thing you know, you're not DMing because you're too busy trying to design a world. Instead, I'm going to ease the burden on my shoulders and look for what exists, see what works, and based on the information that I do find, okay, this one works, that one works. Cool. Let's use that, and let's throw the players sorry, the characters in there, and they can explore that stuff. And if they start asking me too many questions about why this type of flower grows in this season of the year, I will tell them I could answer that question, but that means I have to end the session today while end the session now while I figure it out. Do you want to continue the session, or do you want to end while I figure out the answer to your question about the flowers? usually players are smart enough to realize, ah, I understand the I'm not gonna bug you too much about that. But however, I do let them know that if you really do want to find out, I'll try to figure it out uh, outside of the game session, and I'll provide an answer when I can. But yes, I'm not the type who wants to uh, dig too deep a hole of world building under my feet, because I will never leave if I do fall into that hole of world building, and I will never end up never running a game at all because I'm too busy building a world.
Yeah, that's a great point because I think one of my earlier, I think in my second one shot I ran, somebody was asking about the flowers, and I said it was purple. And they're like, "Why is it purple?" Because magic. And I think that's what, like, actually, that's how I responded. So
Right? Because purple is pretty. Purple is pretty. Deal with it.
yeah, and
Yeah.
because there's parts of like TTRPGs, like you said, where it's like, I think like minifigs, world building, and map making, I think in itself could be like its own separate hobby, because how involved it can be. But no, that was a great answer. So these next few questions are going to be in a different viewpoint. These are going to be kind of thought provoking. It might be asking about questions that, or might be asking about situations that either you've had before, or situations of like, if this did happen and you've never, or if this has not happened, how would you handle it? Do you think
Okay.
DMs should ever play favorites with players?
Play favorites. If I do, I do it unconsciously. The thing with me is, I know if I'm doing it. I just gotta make sure I'm not making it too obvious. And when I say play favorites, before I start hearing comments like, "Damn, Corgi, you're unfair," take it easy. What I'm saying is, the reason why I play favorites is because I know the characters well enough and I care about them. Sometimes I care about the characters, but I don't know them well enough. And sometimes it's the other way around. But if I do get the circumstance where I care care about the character and I know them well enough, that's when it starts showing that, this is a favorite of yours. And if I associate a character that I truly like with the player, it will show that I like having this player at my table. And overall, what's wrong with that? Because we're people. We have favorite people. We would of course have favorite people to play with, such in real life, favorite people to hang out with, favorite people to talk to, favorite people to play Stardew Valley with or something. And like in D&D, I have some people that I will always enjoy the game, no matter what type of game it is. But it's the fact that it's those people, and that's what makes the game even better for me. And I don't think that's a bad thing, having favorites, because we're people. We have favorites. We can't really do anything about that. The thing is, though, I try not to let that get in the way of me being a fair DM. As in, if this character, even it's my favorite player, decided to make that move, oh yeah, I'm gonna punish them for it. As a matter of fact, my favorite players are the ones whose characters often get beat up the most, because it's a sign of love, or so I've been told.
No, that's true. That's how I see it too. But no, because there's certain circumstances too, especially if you're like in long running campaigns. Like, just kind of, it might, it, it's like, it's hard to like to not pick favorites, because it's like long running campaign. There's gonna be people that always show up on time, always like role play a little bit harder, um, and try to like, "Hey DM, I'm gonna take notes for you." But then like people, if they just see the DM interacting with them, they're like, "That's picking favorites. They got the magic item and I didn't." It's like, no, you get it next turn. But no, that was a great point. So for uh for players that, and this might, and it even might be for newer players, I've struggled with it after even decades of playing. But for people that get analysis paralysis, uh how do you handle that?
I start saying a number, and then I say the number before that, and then I say the number before that, and then I say the number before that. Then they start realize I'm counting down. I say, you're gonna hear your party's hearing some noises in this dungeon. And while you're deciding if you're going to go to the left hallway, the middle hallway, or the right hallway, the sound coming from behind you sounds rather ominous. And you're noticing it's getting closer and closer and closer. The footsteps getting a little bit louder, and you start to realize there's more than one set of footprints, and this feeling in the back of your neck begins to creep down your spine. You swear that if you had sweat glands or something, they would be sweaty, and you're not gonna want to stick around to find out what happens when those sounds reach your party. So tell me, where are you going? Left path, middle path, or right path? And that's usually enough of an indicator. Y'all, make your choice. And if they don't, I roll dice in front of them, and then I say, it seems that your guts are telling you to take the path to the left. But that's because I rolled the dice and they haven't decided yet.
No, that's great. Have you ever spooked players so much in analysis paralysis, like you hear footsteps? Well, how loud are the footsteps? No.
Indeed. And sometimes this is why have favorite players, because those favorite players of mine are the ones who end up prompting the party to move forward. They do my job for me. They ease the burden on my shoulders, and that's why I do like them. And those favorite players of mine, they do bring characters who, if the party is indecisive, they're going to, oh, I'm gonna go to this very obviously dangerous place because it should be fine, right? And then the rest of the party will be like, no, wait, don't go by yourself, and then they follow along so that we proceed and we don't stay too long in one spot figuring out what to do, you know? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, maybe. This one, next one is going to be um, so if you could create a new type of undead creature, what would its lore be generally? Like, what would it be?
An undead creature with peculiar lore. Ooh, that sounds fun.
Yeah, just like it's a you're introducing a new undead creature. What would it be?
Okay. And is there truly ever anything that is original nowadays? But in any case, I'm going to base this off of something that tickles my brain sometimes. Um, People in your dreams, when you meet strangers, when you're outside and whatnot, their faces their faces end up in your subconscious. It's why some npcs in your dreams are some npcs in your dreams are people whose faces you don't recognize, but it turns out these are people randos that you've met while, I don't know, on your commute. But at some point, how many of them are dead and how many of them are still alive? And 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 sometimes they do invade your dreams, and they decide to um feast on what's there. And they I'm trying to come up with a name for it, but I can't really think of one right now. I don't want to call it Dream Eater. That's a Pokemon move. But working title, Dream Eater. The random folks that you met in person, or passed by while you're walking IRL, but they're already dead, but they still are in your dreams. They're stuck there in your dreams.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be really spooky. When you're that says I was like Dream Eater, but no, that'd actually be really interesting, probably terrifying. Um, if your players had to run a kingdom, how would you manage that? How would you?
A kingdom.
How would you let them? Yeah, like just run a kingdom or maybe a city or a business or of some sort.
The business part I can make do. The kingdom is very, very difficult. I'm gonna have to think about a kingdom's dynamics. But the business part, okay. Well, firstly, the the party will need to do the usual thing. Who's going to be in charge of marketing? Who's going to be in charge of inventory, merchandising? Who's going to be in charge of maintenance? And who's going to be in charge of production? Depends on what type of business the party is doing, right? If they're selling, I don't know, cutlery, uh, where do they source the cutlery? Who's making the cutlery? Where do they get all the things? Who does the advertisements? Who does the budget? Who does the finance? I have to ask the players to distribute the labor amongst themselves. And then they list down what their tasks would be. And when they list down what their tasks would be, we figure out if we're gonna have them have the characters tackle these tasks on a weekly, bi-weekly, monthly. And then when that happens, I'll ask them for some roles. And there is a specific DC depending on the season. As in, is there a demand? Is there what? Is there a shortage? Is there something else? The DC will change depending on those factors. And if they do meet the DC, hey, profit. If they don't meet the DC, bad things happen. And if enough roles fail, uh worse things happen. And if everyone gets good roles, they have a very good year, and they start building relationships with customers who might be returning customers, and will do some boring math stuff to see if the party does indeed turn a profit based compared to the expenses that they've made. One of those things.
Yeah, when you're when you're saying like bad things happen, I was like, what is like Tormu comes online, like the D&D version of Timu, and gets some like cursed magic items that they're making.
Yes,
Yeah. Awesome.
indeed.
And and how would you handle a player who refuses to share the spotlight or refuses to try to get in the spotlight?
The player that is shy about the spotlight, I have more tolerance for versus the player who refuses to share the spotlight, because a player who refuses to share the spotlight is a player that does not belong to my table. Unless they are the solo player, and I'm the DM, and they are playing with no one else, that's fine. But if they are sharing the spotlight, if they're supposed to be sharing the spotlight with 4 or 5 other people, they have to do that. And if they don't, that player is likely never going to find a seat at my table again. I also include in my pre-game table rules, I do let the players know that they must share the spotlight. If the player is very shy, okay, no problem. They will not be forced into the spotlight. I will provide some opportunities for them to get in the spotlight. It's up to them if they take it or not. And I will also provide some hooks for the character to take to interact with the other NPCs. And I ask the other players to, in character, provide some opportunities for that shyer player to interact with them. It is just going to be up to them to take it or not, because I can't really force someone to do something they don't want to do.
No, that's true. Have you ever heard of or considered like have you ever heard of the social initiative? Or been in a situation where you might have to use something like that where it's basically combat initiative except for like during social encounters?
Combat initiative, but social encounters. Interesting. I employ a strategy or a tactic if I am handling very enthusiastic players. They want to RP and whatnot. They want to interact with as many people as possible. I first and foremost get them under control first. I say, okay, there's so many folks to interact with. There's so many things that you can do before we start going about this very chaotically. I'm gonna go about this by your names listed on Discord, for example, or your character's names listed on the VTT for me, for example, as well. I say, okay, we're gonna do this from left to right. So you, and I say the character's name, what will you be doing in this social situation? And then I go to the next person and the next person and the next person. But initiative, that's gonna take a while to do because for some reason people take for freaking forever to roll initiative properly. So I just go about it by looking at their names listed in the VTT, and then that's where we go. If another social encounter comes up, I go the other way, right to left, rather, right to left, so that at least it's not always going to be, oh, my name is on the right side, so I'm going to be last and everything. No, no, no. I'm going to give an opportunity for the person who went first to go last, and the person who went last to go first, etc., etc. And that way, every character will tell me what they want to do in the social situation, and they will have a chance to do their thing.
No, and that's how I do it too, with the Discord, because like the social initiative is something I've heard about. I haven't used it myself. I could think of like like how you kind of what you started with of like there's gonna be there could be situations where a lot of not I guess loud players where you can need it.
Mm,
And I play mostly on Discord, so or DM mostly in Discord, and doing the like I'm just gonna go as I see your all's names. I'm just gonna clockwise. Um, but no, yeah, it's great
yes.
points. How would you, how do you, or how would you manage a situation where a player is trying to take advantage of your rulings? Either maybe they're trying to twist it to their favor. How would you handle a player that like they're doing it and you're like, yep, you notice, and how would you handle it?
Mm. Player trying to exploit rules as written to get something in their favor. If it's something ridiculous like the peasant railgun, I will absolutely say no, like straight up no. But if it's something that they argue convincingly enough, as in I can tell that if I'm able to tell that they really looked into this, I don't know, mad respect for them making that effort. I will say I'm gonna allow this for now because I can see that this is something you really want to do. Next time, it is very unlikely that I will allow it. And at the same time, when a player wants to do one of those shenanigans, it's it's I tell them right off the bat, if I allow you to do something like this, you're allowing me to do the same with the NPCs. It's a two-way thing. You're not the only one who's allowed to do some shenanigans. I get to do the same. So the more shenanigans I enable and allow you to do, the more you're allowing me to do.
Yeah, I had a player ask me for it, and it was like in good spirit. It was cool, but it was also like a really overpowered homebrew. And they're like, "Yeah, can I do this?" I'm like, "Are you sure? It could be really fun when I do it too." Why would you do it? Because I'm gonna let my monsters do it. But
Yeah,
but no,
right?
that's a yeah, that's a great viewpoint. Um, and this is gonna be the last question, at least for this, until we get to closers. But what do you have you ever had a player, um, either like an NPC death, total party kill, or just somebody come up to you and say, "Hey, I want to retire this character. I'm done with it." Have you? How would you handle that?
I actually haven't had a chance to be approached by a player that says, "I'm gonna retire this character after this." I haven't yet actually. Hmm. I have had, however, the the opposite. The opposite happened, like not retiring, but they make someone new because of what happened. But to be fair, it was a collaborative thing. It wasn't something that I just entirely did on my own. It just so happens that the situation led to the creation of another character concept. Uh, One of my favorite players, a friend of mine as well, after completing a mini campaign under me, because of the choices that their party made, I allowed them to to do some shenanigans, because you know how in 2014 divine intervention, literally the gods are like gonna are gonna intervene, and combine that with an opportunity for an NPC to cast wish on behalf of the party. That means, okay, I see what you're doing there. I see that you want to do this, and I see how invested you are in this. So let's go about this. I need you to roll to I need you to roll to tell me, to show me rather, what kind of NPC shows up to cast wish on your party's behalf. And they ended up rolling the chaotic neutral type of creature that could grant wishes. And I said, okay, I see this. And just to shorten it, they got what they wanted. But I gave them an epilogue when everything was said and done as to what happened in terms of repercussions of their choice. And after I told them that, one of the players, one of my favorite players, friend of mine, said, "Oh my god, okay." And then she showed up uh in my private messages like, "I have an idea for someone." And I'm like, "Tell me." And then she presented to me this concept. I'm like, "Yes, this is the consequence of what your party did, and I am all for it. Make this character exist." So, not a character retirement, but a character born? Question mark, because of decisions made. I've yet to actually TPK my own adventuring party. I've never done that before. I hold that as a point of pride for me actually. I've never TPK'd my party. I don't take pride in that. I I don't know why DMs do it, but meh.
Yeah, the one TPK I was involved in was a player. It was actually my last campaign player. We all went out and it was TPK. We were fighting the BBG, so I could see it as like grand finales, and then like a
Yes.
little follow up of, and like after that, like the last 10 minutes of the session was talking about how we were like memorialized by statues and stuff, and that was after like a year and a half of play, and I was like, yeah, that was well done.
That's pretty sick. Yeah.
So on closers, audience, if you have any questions, if you want to put it in event chat one, um,
I do see some.
Corgi, what advice would you give to somebody that's maybe a player that hasn't pursued being a DM yet, but have thought
Hmm.
about it, or somebody that's actively pursuing to be a DM?
You know how so okay, new dear new DM or dear aspiring DM. I know that it's scary. I know that you're nervous, and I know that you're wondering if you're ever going to be able to deliver a fun experience for your group. I know the feeling. I feel it all the time. It never goes away. You just learn how to still DM in spite of it. It doesn't sound very positive, but I try to keep it realistic that if you're a DM, there will be plenty of moments where, am I delivering? Am I making this fun for my group? And a lot of newer DMs are worried that they never will deliver. But as someone who's been DMing for a few years, I still get that feeling. It never goes away. In fact, if you make yourself a DM, you're setting yourself up for a chance to have to face those demons of yours. It sounds scary, and it is. But you learn to navigate it, and you learn to do the scary thing in spite of how scary it is. And I think that's pretty good. Hopefully.
No, yeah, that was really well said. I've been DMing for many years, and I still get kind of like lost in stasis, like analysis paralysis. I was like, is this gonna be good enough? Are they gonna laugh at it? Then I just started making material that they should laugh at. They're like, I try to make them laugh at it, so it won't sting so hard. But but no, that was well said. What is, after your many years, what do you think is one thing that every DM should try at least once in their session?
Try at least once. Something that every DM should try at least once. Okay. That's a very good question. Something that every DM should do at least once. DM for total randos. DM for people who they have no idea if it's gonna be people that they like or people that they don't like, because a lot of the people who run games don't want to do that because they would rather DM for their friends, and there is no fault in that. I DM for my friends as well, and it's great. It's just that the friends that you really like started out as strangers, randos that you meet along the street. You never know that the next rando that you DM for, or the next group of randos that you DM for, could actually be the people who end up becoming your favorite players. But you never know unless you try.
Yeah, and playing for like GMing for randos, I think to me has been actually probably the best way to practice. Like if you're, especially when you, I don't know how involved you get with homebrewing, but if you do like one shots from scratch, having like just a pool of randos just being like, I guess the test audience, but just playing a
Yes.
one shot for like 2 or 3 groups where they're all just random, lets you get a lot of that perspective too. But no, well said. And
Yeah,
this is going to be
playtesting.
yeah, and this next question is going to be kind of involved in. I'm going to ask the audience question first because it's going to be a nice segue into this next one. How often do you play versus how often do you DM?
That's a very good question. It depends on the time of year, honestly. Let me take a look at January 2025. I've DM'd 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I've DM'd 7 games in January 2025. I've played in 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm counting 5, 6. I've played 6, and and that's pretty even for January of this year. Sometimes it's more leaning one side versus the other. I try to do both in decently acceptable ratios, because if I DM too much, I will get sick and tired of it. Try to stop myself from getting sick and tired of it by playing. And to stop myself from getting sick and tired of playing, I DM. And I always carry this belief that being a DM makes me a better player, and playing makes me be a better DM. You gotta do both because there's benefits to doing both.
Yeah, and seeing that you have like 50-50 kind of balance, what's your preference of, do you prefer DMing or do you prefer playing, or is it like you're kind of in the middle?
I lean more towards the DMing side, I'd say. And but this I try to keep the splits close to even, close to it, as close as possible as I can, but more leaning towards the DMing. February, 1, 2, 3. Wait, sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This hasn't happened yet in February. I've only DM'd 5 times this February and played 1, 2, 3. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, I've played more times in February than I've DM'd.
Nice. Yeah, I need to lean more on becoming a player, especially for stuff that like DMing for a wizard has posed some situations I was not expecting that I need to brush up on. So, and you actually answered the next question about how do you keep yourself inspired and motivated. It's kind of just like to be inspired as a DM, you need to like kind of give it a break so you're not constantly boiling. So, but do you mind not having enough time to play if you're DMing?
Uh, Give and take, right? If I if I looked at my calendar and I see that I do have a lot of games that I'm running, okay, that means at the next opportune moment, I'll try to balance it out by giving myself more time to play. That will compromise the amount of games I DM, but it is one of the compromises that I make. I don't mind. I don't mind it as long as at some point, in some way, shape, or form, I balance it out. Because if I go too much in one side of the spectrum, I will get burnt out very, very fast. And if I get burnt out very, very fast, this hobby that's supposed to be making me happy will end up not doing so. And that's going to be a very bad thing for me.
Yeah, and that's gonna be bad for all of us. Um,
Right?
but yeah, so we've got about 5 minutes left, and we have three questions left. But do you have any exciting, like, what are you working on right now? What's something that what ideas you might be working on that you can share with us?
Ideas I'm working on. Well, I try to keep myself in check, accountable. What's the word? One of those where I do some writing for my characters, but they are very personal and I am not likely going to share them with anybody except for my favorite people, players rather. And of course the never ending backlog of, oh, here's an idea, I could probably make this an adventure. Oh, here's an idea, I could make this an adventure. Oh, here's another idea, I could make this an adventure. To be fair, who no 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 four of those have been turned into one shots already, and that's great. But another one that I had in the back burner since, I don't know, 2023 or late 2023 or early 2024, it's still there. And I was recently inspired to look into it again, and I wanna turn it into something. That's one of the projects that I'm working on. I try to keep myself accountable by writing character stuff so that I'll be able to make myself accountable and write that backlog that's been waiting there that I really want to make a thing.
Nice. Yeah, and I keep a running keep like a like I have a journal and then a digital journal of all the stuff I try to, because I don't want to lose the idea. I don't want it to be a fleeting memory. But no, that's great.
Indeed.
Um, is there uh, is there anything that we didn't cover that you want to shout out to or that you want to talk about?
Hmm. Well, if I get sick and tired of playing, and if I get sick and tired of DMing, that's what prompted me to, maybe I should try being an instructor for Altrole. And I'm here. And surprisingly, I managed to persuade the people to let me in, and I don't know why, but I'm here. So I teach courses so that I don't get sick and tired of playing or DMing.
Nice. And where can people find you at here on Altroll? What are your favorite channels going?
I lurk very quietly. I don't and usually I'm more active in the staff channels. But if I were to be found, I will be in lounge occasionally.
Okay. And do you have any like I did get your link tree earlier, but is there any social media channels that people can find you at, or that you want me to share here?
Why not? My link tree does include my Facebook page, but I haven't been posting as religiously as I should. The Corgi familiar.
All right. Well, we have about 2 minutes left. But audience, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to read it out for you. But Corey, it has been a pleasure having you today. Thank you for your time. I'll just wait around for
And thank you.
maybe like if anybody starts typing, but other than that, I'm
All
gonna
good.
post a post course survey if everybody can fill that out. But we'll catch you on the next one, and I'll stay here for. Let's see if anybody's typing anything. But
No worries. Sure, if the people want to know something, I think I'm allowed to talk about it because I did just finish that side project in the staff chats, the one that I keep bugging people about in the staff chat.
yeah, the
Uh,
organized play mastermind.
yeah, yes. I guess that's something in the works. We'll figure out how it goes depending on how the demo happens tomorrow.
Yeah, so a little sneak peek. We're basically doing you're hosting it as an event, right? And
Mm.
that'll be on the event stage.
It'll be for the staff only, the demo, I mean.
Yeah, and it's just a sneak peek for now, but maybe in the next 2 weeks, maybe.
Mm.
Corgi's will be hosting possible a uh an event focused on what organized play is for D&D, so stuff you might see more in local game shops. I've even seen like it's not just
Mm.
held in shops like conventions. I've seen it held in garages, where the local area meets up together to play. So
Mm.
it doesn't have to be in a shop. But yeah, that's up and coming on the horizon. A distant elephant, if you perhaps on the on.
Yes.
But that's all. I don't think anybody has any questions. So Corgi, I'm going to close out the recording. Thanks for your time, and audience. Thanks for coming to listen to us. And this video might be posted on YouTube in the next weekish to 10 days maybe. So catch y'all out there.
And thank you.
Crack your dice, let's roll tonight. All the fun in the spotlight. Inside sharp